Hey there everyone, Pal here, and welcome back. It's time for not really a tour of duty. I'm not making a whole new series. This is going to be in with the tour of duties. We've already done a tour of duty though of the Mustang, but I liked that approach I took with the Aurora, asking how practical is it, how usable is it, and I wanted to do the same thing here with the Mustang. So we're not going to do the full walk around, though there's not a huge amount to walk around on these Mustangs, but we're going to talk a little bit about just how viable of a ship is it in the universe right now, in the PU, in order to make money, play the game, enjoy all that stuff, and so on. For this, I have the Mustang Beta. So there are 6 variants. There's 4 variants, essentially. You have the Alpha, which has a little bit of a storage capacity, so you can do a little bit of cargo hauling. You have the Beta, this one here, which has the habitat area. It has the bunk and the bathroom and stuff behind the cockpit seat. And then you have the Gamma, which is the racing variant. And then you have the Delta, which is the sort of light military variant. In terms of like what you gain and what you lose, it mostly comes down to hard points. The defaults, the Alpha and the Beta have the same loadouts from everything I've seen. On the nose, you have a gimbaled turret with 2 size 2 hard points on it. Now this cannot be removed. This is locked on. So no matter what, you have 2 size 2s on the nose of the ship. Under the wings, you have 2 size 1s, 1 on each wing, giving you a total of 2 size 2s and 2 size 1s combined. Then there's also on the military variant, which also shares the same front nose gimbals, wing gimbals. The military variant also comes with 2 rocket pods, 1 on each wing again, each one holding 16 unguided rockets. Oddly enough, if you look here, I'll show you in the Moby glass, you can actually see the rocket pod mount locations on the Beta, and I think you can also see it on the Alpha. You can't buy the rocket pods. Right now, from what I can tell, they're not in game. So I think in time, you will be able to put them on, and basically an Alpha could have the exact same loadout as a Delta, or a Beta could have the exact same loadout as a Delta. For some reason, though, they just haven't put the rocket pods into the stores. They're in game, they work. If you have a Delta, you have the rocket pods. They're just, from what I've seen, there's nowhere in the PU to buy them right now, which is a little weird. The Gamma, the racing variant, is a bit different. The Gamma gives up the front nose turret, so you have no front nose turret, you just have the 2 size 1s, 1 under each wing. In place of that, though, you do have a faster ship, so you gain an increased engine capacity to make the ship a little bit faster. It's a racing ship, it's not designed to be a combat role, so not really a big deal. I don't know about the rocket pod hardpoints on the Gamma or not. It doesn't say anything on the ship matrix, so if you have a Gamma, let me know in the comments down below if you can see them in the loadout manager or not. So that's the major one. The Gamma gives up the front nose turret. The Alpha and the Beta, while they have the hard points for the rocket pods, there's nowhere to buy the rocket pods in order to mount them. The Delta does have the rocket pods. So those are the major differences. The reason I have the Beta here, though, the reason I went this route is, well, one, it was the one I could get my hands on, but number 2 was, one of the things I wanted to see about how viable was it was, well, with this ship, is there any way to get a cargo package into the habitation area, into behind the seat? One of the bonuses I said in the Aurora series was, one of the things that does make the Aurora a little more viable than the Mustang was, you do have that little entry area before you get into the bed that you can easily climb into and just do drop a package there. So you can do both retrieval missions, but also courier missions within the PU. And the courier missions pay quite well. They're good money makers if that's the route you want to go. Long story short, I can't find a way to use that with the Mustang Beta. The reason it seems to break is, while maybe they could do and allow you to carry the package up the little climb-in ladder to get in, what happens, though, is when you go to get into the Beta, you automatically get right into the pilot seat. There's no way to climb up the ladder and get into the back of the ship. And you can't sit down in pilot seats, you can't sit down in any seats with these packages you're carrying for the delivery missions. So you climb up, and when you go into the animation, you just drop the package. So there's no way to put it into the back of the ship, and then from what I can tell, there's no way to get it back out. If you could glitch it in there, say you land in a valley, and you open the cockpit and you throw it in somehow, there's no way to then get it back out of there without dropping again, because to leave the back of the ship, you enter the pilot seat, and then you exit the pilot seat down and out. So unfortunately, Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, yeah, the Aurora still is the only one of the starters of these two that you can actually do retrieval missions or courier missions with. So that's why we went with the Beta. Now, as for everything else, it's a much more complex and mixed bag than I was actually initially thinking. I was overall quite disappointed with the Mustang, which is odd because my Tour of Duty video, when I played around with the reworked back at CitizenCon, I was actually quite impressed with it, but I didn't do enough combat with it. It also got skewed by how impressed I became with the Aurora once I found the loadout with the Dominance scatterguns. Really kind of elevated the Aurora that when I sat down with this thing, I had a lot more issues with it than I would have guessed. The default loadout, two size 2s, the M4As. So they're M4As, they're two size 2 cannons. I've always been a little hard on these. They hit very hard. To be completely honest, they hit very, very hard. But they have two big problems. They have a slow rate of fire. They also overheat very quickly, making them, against anything smaller than a Cutlass Black, a pain in the butt to use against. Trying to use them against the fighters of any type, they're just really, really tough to be hit with. Now, at least that's the way I find it. Obviously, if you're a much better pilot than me, that might not be true. Maybe you're sniping M50s with them with no problem. I'm definitely not doing that with these type of cannons. When you do hit, though, the targets definitely recognize it. But when I went out, I actually found that it was a lot easier to destroy a Connie with this loadout than it was to destroy a Gladius, just because I'd hit the Gladius once, I'd take its shields down, maybe do a little bit of hull damage, but then it would be 15-20 seconds before I get another good hit on him, and by then his shields had recharged. So I was just barely doing this little chip damage over time to where I was getting frustrated fighting Gladiuses. Yeah, so that's the base loadout. The base loadout leaves a lot to be desired, but it doesn't take into account the wing guns. So after I played around with the base loadout, I went ahead and I was like, all right, let's do something on the nose that's going to be a little more viable against fighters. So I went with actually the same guns that the Delta comes with by default, which is the Bulldogs. It's the size 2 laser repeaters on the front guns. So I went with that. Now, I was also keeping in mind, though, that I was doing this, well, the front are going to be gimbaled no matter what. We can't gimbal the wings. So what do I want to do with that? And I figured one of the things that the Bulldogs, after they were nerfed in like 3.1 or 3.2, their consistent damage output isn't that great. Well, they got fairly good burst. They don't do, burning through a constellation or something with them leaves a lot to be desired. So my second approach for the wing guns, what I decided to do was go with not the Dominance, I almost said Dominance, the Dominance will come back up, the distortion cannons. So these are your EMP guns, your ion cannons, whatever you want to do it. They don't actually do ship damage, but they eat through shields very quickly. And I figured, what will happen is when I'm fighting something larger, like a Constellation or whatever, although they won't be gimbaled, since the Connie is a larger ship, if I get within 500 feet of them or so, I should be able to pretty reliably hit with the gimbaled weapons and those guns at the same time. They will take the shield down, allowing me to do the maximum amount of damage with my Bulldogs before they overheat. This is what I thought. This was theoretically what I was going to approach. Good news is, against the fighters, the Bulldogs do work a lot better. Made taking on Gladiuses and that type of stuff for these ECN alerts a lot easier. They worked fairly well against them. They weren't super high damage, definitely took a little while to burn through a Gladius, especially if he was rolling or something and you couldn't keep on one side of the shields, but they worked better than the M4s. Against the Connie, though, that wasn't the case. The Connie, while the distortion cannons did do their job fairly well and took the shields down, once they were down, the Connie just had so much HP, it took forever to burn through it with the Bulldogs. In fact, I ended up accidentally crashing into the ship and lodging my ship into the Connie before I actually destroyed it, after circle strafing it for like 2 minutes before I finally did that. I ended up having to self-destruct. It was actually pretty entertaining and annoying at the same time. But yeah, this loadout left a lot to be desired, to the point where I was like, you know what, if that was the case I was going to go with, I would rather just have a weapon on the wings that were going to do damage. Because once the shields were down, the distortion just weren't helping me at all. So I would definitely, if this is kind of the approach you want to take with the repeaters on the front, I wouldn't recommend distortion in the wings. I would either do size 1, what are the Bulldogs, what's the smaller brother of the Bulldogs? Panther? No, Panther is size 3. Badger? I think it's Badgers, or size 1s, I think. I do either those or scatter cannons. Either the shotgun ones, the actual ballistic ones, or the dominance ones. And this is what I settled on in the end, was I went ahead, went back, and I pulled the front nose cannons off. I got rid of those bulldogs. I put the size 2 dominance on, and then I put the size 1 dominance on the wings, and I took this back out. And surprise, surprise, this worked really, really well. What's then got me asking though, is it the ship working well, or is it the cannons working well? And I think more and more, the dominance cannons right now are just really good. They're very forgiving. If you're not the best aim, you're not the best pilot, you know, as long as you can get a target kind of in front of you, their spread and the amount of projectiles they shoot out, you're going to hit something. Their damage is good. They don't overheat. So there's just a lot of good going on with the dominance, to the point where the Aurora, I probably came away more impressed based on the dominance than based on the Aurora. That said though, everything wasn't all hunky-dory with the Mustang and this loadout. The problem comes down to there's a difference between flying a ship with no gimbaled weapons and flying a ship with locked gimbals. It changes how the mouse cursor works. And if you've not really messed around with it, I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't understand this. I know of it a lot because of the Vanguard. So if you go back and you watch the Aurora video, you'll see that once I take it out, I still have the default mouse cursor where it's kind of, I can drag and the nose chases the cursor a little bit, right? Well, with the Mustang, I was like, I want to make the most out of all my hardpoints. So I went ahead and I locked those front gimbals down, so everything was just firing straight forward, trying to do similar to what I had done with the Aurora. The difference happens though is when you lock the gimbals, which is Control J, I believe, by default, you lose that chase on the mouse cursor. It locks your mouse cursor, it basically gets rid of it and locks it onto your center crosshair. Now, the flying is still very similar, but because you lose that crosshair, it becomes a little awkward to chase targets with. I think in time, I could overcome this. It's how I fly the Vanguard, but when I'm flying the Vanguard, most of the time I'm using my joystick. And locked gimbals work really well with a joystick. But trying to do keyboard and mouse with locked gimbals, I just found it to be strange. It was hard to overcome. It was doable, but it was not nearly as good of a flying experience as flying it with unlocked gimbals. So I bounced back and forth between locking the gimbals, unlocking the gimbals, and in the end what I decided on was just fly the Mustang with unlocked gimbals and accept that at certain ranges, anything beyond like 300 feet, you're probably not going to be reliably hitting with your wing guns, or vice versa. You're either going to be reliably hitting with the nose guns or the wing guns, one or the other. If you can occasionally get a target that just kind of comes to a stop, you know, when the server starts acting up and the targets stop moving real fast, well, then you can get all 4 firing on them at once. I was still, though, more than a little disappointed. I'll tell you, I'll be completely honest. And I don't have the damage numbers, but if I go back and I watch the footage of me in the Aurora, I felt like my damage output in the Aurora was higher and more consistent than the output is in the Mustang. And that shouldn't be the case. Having 2 size 2s replacing 2 size 1s, the Mustang's DPS output should be somewhat higher. Maybe not significantly. I don't know exactly how they're scaling it up. You know, how much more damage does a size 2 do over a size 1? It might be 10%, it might be 20%, I don't know. But it should be higher. And it definitely did not feel the case. Just because of the way that front gimbal works, I never felt like I was consistently hitting with all 4 weapons on a moving target. And that there was really my big problem with the Mustang. I found that in the end, like, I probably would have enjoyed I probably found the Aurora better in combat than the Mustang, which is really weird. Now, it's not all bad though. One, if you only have money or if you have the Mustang, let's go back a second. It's not all bad. There are some good about the Mustang. First, the number one thing, the big reason why the Mustang is better than the Aurora, the MSRP. The Mustang Alpha, the starter ship one, $5 more MSRP. So if you're going to cross chassis upgrade down the line, it's worth more. You can save $5 doing that. So that's the number one reason the Mustang is better. The Mustang flies better. It really does. While the Aurora, I was impressed in its combat role, and once I found the loadout that worked, that was great. The Aurora is not a great ship to just fly from point A to point B. It's slow, it's sluggish, it doesn't maneuver all that well, it doesn't accelerate that well, it doesn't have a good top speed. The Mustang does all of that stuff much better. It's just, if you're just flying from point A to point B, going down to a planet or whatever, the Mustang is a better ship to fly. Other than that though, let's see, where else was the Mustang? The Mustang's hood is nicer, I like the cockpit in the Mustang hood more. Other than that though, like the Aurora might be a more viable ship in general. Oh, another problem with the Mustang. The wings get blown off very easily, sometimes without even losing your shields. Now this might just be a glitch. It seems like the wings, when they deploy out, might not be inside the shields, where I've lost wings even though my shields are still at max or near full health. So I don't know how the wings are getting destroyed, if I'm clipping something with them, but I lost my wing in 3 ECN missions. I lost my wings twice. So there was only one mission that I did not lose my wings in. So that was definitely a bit of a shocker. Also, the Mustang doesn't feel as tanky as the Aurora. This could be just the shields, you can change out the shields and pick that up. But I noticed trying to go down planet side in order to do one of the missions where you go down and clear out the 8 guys in Hurson's planet side, what is it called? The execution missions or whatever. That those turrets, the defensive turrets around the base, chewed through the Mustang shields very fast. I don't remember if I still have this footage, but when I'd go down and try to approach, in order to destroy those turrets, I was constantly losing my shields. I had to fly away, let the shields recharge, come back, re-engage them, do this. It was a lot more difficult to actually destroy those turrets than it was with the Aurora, which really caught me off guard. So, I feel like I've been a little tough on the Mustang here, and that wasn't my intention. Some of it was expectation. You know, I went in with low expectations for the Aurora, and then it blew me away. I went in with high expectations or higher expectations about the Mustang, and I just was never able to find a good loadout that I was like, this works, this feels really good, and it's usable in all these different situations. I could find a loadout that was good at destroying light fighters. I could find a loadout that was good at destroying constellations or larger fighters. But I could not find a loadout that did everything reasonably well or was reliable in all those areas. So if you have a Mustang and you're defensive about it, I apologize. I don't mean to beat up on it. It's a fine ship. It flies really nicely. It's good on that side, but I think the hard points are screwed up, if I'm going to be very honest. I think they should swap the size 1s and size 2s. Put the gimbals on the wings, and then put the size 1s on the front. That way you could either do 4 size 1 all gimbal together, right? You leave the front turret on there, but size 1s fit on it, so they're automatically gimbaled. You have size 2s on the wings, so you could put a gimbal onto that, taking it down to size 1, and you could have 4 size 1s, or if you're going to be flying it with a joystick, rather than have 4 size 1s all gimbaled, you could have everything locked and 2 size 2s locked, 2 size 1s locked. I think that would really make a big difference on this ship and make it a lot more enjoyable in combat. So there you guys go. That's enough rambling about the Mustangs. Moving on, I might do this about the Avengers series. I'm very interested in how the Avengers play. So probably going to CCU this Mustang now up to the Avenger, and we'll come back with that next time. Until then, though, this has been Power. Thanks for watching.